Hi everyone, my name is Omwali. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Digital Ventures. Today what I want to talk to you about is a couple tips to help prevent yourself from being hacked. As we know, there are a lot of hackers out there that are trying to get access to our personal information. And what I want to get across today is some of the steps that we can take to make ourselves a little bit more of a difficult target so they can move on to the next person. First thing that I want to talk about is don't include personal information in your email address. I know that with Gmail, it's been, kind of in vogue and in fashion to use, first name dot last name at gmail.com or first name and birthday. But anytime that you're starting to give someone the ability to stitch the information, your personal information together, you're putting yourself at risk. So that's something that we don't recommend that you do. Also, when you choose your security questions, don't choose the traditional security Q&As. For example, mother's maiden name. This is something that's easily discoverable by anyone who knows someone in your family or may have interacted with you a long period of time. So try to choose something a little more obscure that someone can't easily discover on the internet. The next thing that I want to talk about is use two-factor authentication when you're going onto your email or your bank accounts. And what this essentially is it allows you to not only enter your account credentials, but also get a text message that you have to enter in addition. That's where the two factors comes in play. The other thing that I would say is don't use the same account credentials for websites, right? You've got your financial information, you've got your personal information, you've got social media. If you're using the same email and password combination, once someone figures out one of those, they have access to everything, and so that's putting you at risk. So you want to make sure that you don't do that. The next thing is when you're thinking about your phone, we've got 6-digit security codes which are very difficult. However, if you put in a combination of your birthday, your partner's birthday, your children's birthday, your anniversary date, the day that you met, like these are all things that people who know you are going to be able to find out and allow yourself to be hacked. So try to choose something that's a lot more obscure, something that people won't easily guess. I know it's easy, you want to use your birthday because that's something that's easy to remember, but what you're trying to do is you want someone to move on to a more difficult target. And so if you're using something as easy as your birthday, that's going to be something that's going to be pretty easy to figure out. Next thing that I want to talk about is we've got all these things where you can share account credentials for Netflix and Hulu and ESPN and your HBO Go. Don't do that. That basically gives a hacker the structure of your account credentials, and a friend of yours, as much as you love them, they're probably not going to be as careful with your information as you are. Another thing that you want to do is, once you complete a browsing session on either Chrome or Internet Explorer or Safari, you want to make sure that you're going in and clearing out your cookies and any other personal data. That prevents someone from going back onto the website and potentially being able to go back into a site that you were recently visiting without even having to guess your password at all. I know it's been very popular for people to have many tabs open over several different days and several different browsing sessions, but it's much better if you restrict that as an option. Close out your browser windows, delete all your history, delete all your cookies so that you can protect yourself. Another thing that I want to talk about is Wi-Fi. So we have guests that come over our house, we have people that live nearby us, that we have Wi-Fi that we get access to because we want people to be able to surf the internet and be comfortable when they're in the presence of our home. What you want to do is you want to create 2 different Wi-Fi networks. One that's for your family and those devices that are normally, your phones, your computers, that are people within your household. And then a guest Wi-Fi that either has a password or has a very different login than your normal Wi-Fi. The reason why you want to do this is because you don't know what your guests are going to be visiting. And you don't want to open yourself up to potential sites that they might visit. They might not be as careful about internet security. So create 2 different Wi-Fi networks in your home. The next thing that you want to do is sometimes you're out and about, you go to a coffee shop, you go to a restaurant, or you're just out and about in the world, and you jump onto the Wi-Fi network at a coffee shop. What you want to make sure is that when you do that you sign onto a VPN, which is a virtual private network. And what that does is it obscures the information as it goes from your computer into the internet. Most Wi-Fi networks in coffee shops and other public places are unsecured. That means that anyone who logs on can basically be between yourself and the internet, and that creates a risk. So in order to avoid that, what you want to do is basically obscure that information as it goes from your computer out to the internet. The final thing that I would say is that if we're being careful about, having different credentials, two-factor authentication, what you want to make sure you do is don't leave your passwords on an unsecured note document or Word file on your computer. Right? You've got all this thing, like if someone happens to, stumble onto this, then basically they have all your information. So find yourself a secure password manager. There's many in the Apple Store. There's many on the Play Store, Google Play Store. There's a lot of ways that you can have, your account information and your password stored securely without, resorting to, an unsecured note file, which kind of defeats everything that we just talked about. So, once again, I hope you all find this useful. What we're really trying to do is get at some ways that we can use tips and techniques to try to protect ourselves on the internet. As people learn more and more about computer networks and software, they're able to figure out the holes in the system, and what you want to do is make yourself more resistant to that by making things difficult for those that would seek to do it on. Thanks. Hope you enjoy your day.